Good day everyone. I am Dabi P. Omaging, your presenter for today's discussion. I am going to discuss about discipline and guidance. The topic of discipline and guidance is one of interest to a variety of individuals who care for young children, including professional, caregivers, and parents. Whether the setting is in a family child care home, a preschool, a group daycare center, or an out-of-school care program, an understanding of the basic principles and practices related to guidance and discipline serves as a foundation for interacting successfully with children. We base our guidance policy on the belief that discipline is part of teaching. Our guidance policy considers children's ages, individuals' temperaments, and levels of development. Our classroom environment is designed in ways that let the children know what behavior is expected. Under discipline and guidance, I'm going to discuss the objective of discipline, approach to discipline, developmental stages to discipline, preventive discipline, restorative discipline, and the objective of guidance and counseling. But first, what is discipline? Discipline is another important factor in learning. Discipline is training the learners to act in such a manner that will create classroom conditions conducive to the attainment of instructional objectives. How about guidance? What is guidance? Guidance is the process of helping the learner-client make sound adjustments, formulate wise decisions, and demonstrate effective coping skills as he deals with the realities and challenges in his life. So let's move on to the objective of discipline. The objective of disciplining any student is to help the student develop and maintain self-control, respect for others, and socially acceptable behavior. All policies and procedures regarding student discipline shall be designed to achieve these broad objectives. Disorderly students shall be dealt with in a manner that allows other students to learn in an atmosphere which is safe, conducive to the learning process, and free from unnecessary disruptions. Objective of discipline is guiding children to make wise decisions about their conduct, allowing them to accept the responsibility for their choices, providing directions, correcting undesirable behavior, and teaching acceptable responses. Discipline means to teach. The purpose of discipline is to teach our children appropriate behavior so they may get along with others and live effectively in the world. Next is the approach to discipline. The role of discipline approach shall not always be to punish. Rather, it should try to regulate the negative behavior. We have here two approaches of discipline. First is training approach, referred to as training model. It calls for a frequent repetition of good acts until they become habits. And behavior modification approach, called as behavior modification model. Good behavior is reinforced and misbehavior is being corrected. Now is the developmental stages of discipline. The developmental stages of discipline has 4 stages. So we have here the stage 1, recalcitrant behavior, stage 2, self-serving behavior, stage 3, interpersonal discipline, and stage 4, self-discipline. We will discuss first the stage 1, the recalcitrant behavior, or what we call the power stage. Might makes right. This is the power stage. What makes it work is the imbalance of power between the child and the person in authority. When the child is young, The imbalance of power between him and his parent is significant. If the child is never taught a higher stage, the imbalance of power diminishes as he grows up. The parent then tells us that she can no longer control her child. He will not mind. He challenges authority constantly. If the students want something, they usually just take it. They show very little concern for the feelings of others. They seek out extensions of power. Pencils, scissors, and rulers become weapons in their hands. So that is for stage 1 recalcitrant behavior. Next, stage 2, the self-serving behavior, or what we call the reward punishment stage. What's in it for me? This is the reward and punishment stage. These students behave either because they will receive some sort of reward, such as candy, free time, or whatsoever, because they do not like what happens to them when they do not behave. Most children are moving beyond this stage by the time they are 8 or 9 years old. Older students who still function at this stage do best in classrooms with assertive teachers. There is a very little sense of self-discipline at this stage. Like the power stage children, these youngsters need constant supervision. They may behave quite well in your classroom and then be out of control in the halls on the way to their next class. So next is the stage 3, or the interpersonal discipline, or what we call the mutual interpersonal stage. How can I please you? Students functioning at this stage make up most of youngsters in our middle and junior high schools. These kids have started to develop a sense of discipline. They behave because you ask them. This is mutual interpersonal stage. They care what others think about them, and they want you to like them. These children need gentle reminders. You ask them to settle down and they do so. Assertive discipline works with these students because they understand it, but they really need such a heavy-handed approach to classroom discipline. Quite often, you find students in your classroom that are in transition from stage 2 to stage 3. Perhaps you will know of a student that gets into lots of trouble in other classrooms but not in yours. This child is just learning to trust others and build the interpersonal relationships that are more common with his classmates. You need to let him know what his good behavior is important to you, not only in your classroom, but in others as well. Nurture these youngsters and you will see quick progress. Okay, so let's move on to stage 4, the self-discipline, or what we call the social order stage. I behave because it is the right thing to do. Students functioning at stage 4 rarely get into any trouble at all. They have a sense of right and wrong. Although many middle school and junior high school students will occasionally function at this level, only a few consistently do. These are the youngsters we enjoy working with so much. You can leave these kids alone with the project and come back 20 or 30 minutes later and find them still on task. They behave because in their minds it is the right thing to do. This is the social order stage. These students are almost always on honor level 1. Even though they may never tell you, students who function at this level do not appreciate assertive discipline. They are bothered by the fact that other students force teachers to use so much class time dealing with discipline problems. Although most of the students do not usually operate at this stage, they are near enough to it that they understand it. Cooperative learning activities encourage students to function at this level. The teacher who sets up several groups within the classroom gives students a chance to practice working at this level while he waits close by, ready to step in when needed. So it is important to remember that for many reasons, any child is fully capable of regressing every now and then. When you really get to know your students and are used to them functioning at a stage, it is important to look for a reason when one of your students regresses. Problems with family members, friends, alcohol, or drugs may be behind a shift in behavior. It is simply might be tiredness of one's on illness. Okay, so let's move on now for preventive discipline. Preventive discipline, we believe that the best way to prevent classroom misbehavior is to provide a stimulating curriculum that involves students so successfully that they spend little time thinking of misbehaving. Preventive discipline can be defined as the measures many educators take to avert misbehavior by keeping students engaged. To provide proactive interventions to potential disruptive behaviors by clearly explaining to students what behaviors are not appropriate. Our discipline assertive discipline uses the preventative discipline model in many ways. To begin with, the model prevents the possibility of misbehavior by emphasizing that students must be forced to comply with rules. It is vital for classroom teachers to have a systematic discipline plan that explains exactly what will happen when students choose to misbehave. By telling the students at the beginning of the school year what the consequences will be, teachers ensure that all students know what to expect in the classroom. Also, these rules are posted and reviewed regularly so that students are consistently reminded about appropriate conduct, which can prevent discipline issues as students are constantly reminded. Also, the model has the ability to prevent discipline because teachers are to immediately and confidently react when a discipline situation presents itself. This shows the student that the teacher is serious about what is to occur inside her classroom. By reacting immediately, this has the opportunity to prevent misbehavior as students are aware of what will occur the next time if they choose to act inappropriately. By reacting immediately, students clearly distinguish that the behavior was not appropriate as opposed to reacting later where the student may even forget what they have done. The model also emphasizes So how is preventive discipline done? We have to establish expectations, guidelines and rule for behavior, explain the expectations, establish types of consequences. So the following strategies are prevention oriented. They set the stage for a positive atmosphere and maximize opportunities for desirable behavior. We have to establish clear, consistent, and simple limits, offer straightforward explanations for limits, state limits in a positive rather than a negative, focus on the behavior rather than on the child, state what is expected rather than pose questions, provide choices, allow time to children to respond for expectations, reinforce appropriate behavior with both words and gestures, ignore minor incidents, scan, encourage children to use you as a resource and proximity. Okay, so here are the techniques of preventive discipline. Instructional strategies, room arrangement, setting expectations of behavior, managing students, handling instructional materials, improve working conditions, dignity, roots and procedures, sense of community, rewards, curriculum, involved students, clear understandings, jointly agreed behavior, emphasize on good manners and respect, role model, psychoeducational strategies, talking over students, no rushing around, no negative thoughts, no irritability. So, next is the restorative discipline. Restorative discipline, it is a philosophy that's been getting a lot of attention lately in education world. Restorative discipline simply means that restorative practices focus on repairing social harm by involving the community. A whole school relation approach to building school climate and addressing student behavior that fosters belonging over exclusion, social engagement over control, and meaningful accountability over punishment. It practices replace fear, uncertainty, and punishment as motivators with belonging, connectedness, and the willingness to change because people matter each other. Why is restorative discipline so powerful? Unlike your traditional models of behavior management, restorative discipline has a high level of control and support. Ultimately, restorative discipline is a strong community-centered philosophy for your schools. It focuses on repairing relationships and reversing harm rather than punishing offenders. When done right, restorative discipline is a powerful campus tool. So next is the objectives of guidance and counseling. Guidance and counseling is helping the individual to make a wise choice from among the many alternatives that are open to him in meeting life's conflicting situations. The major aim of guidance counseling services is to encourage students' academic, social, emotional, and personal development. To reach this aim, guidance counseling services help students get to know themselves better and find effective solutions to their daily problems. They also help students improve themselves in all areas and be full functioning individuals. So, counselors monitor students' development according to their needs. They give students necessary support such as helping them to understand themselves and their needs, to solve their problems, to make realistic decisions to improve their abilities and skills, and to adjust themselves and their environment in a healthy way. While implementing guidance counseling services, showing respect to individual differences is essential. Continuity and willingness are vital in guidance, and also confidentiality is essential in psychological counseling. In the guidance and counseling services, the student and his/her needs are in the center. While supporting him, counselors cooperate with the administrators, teachers, parents, and the other staff members if it's necessary. Working with the teachers and administrators is another service which is given by the counselors, preparing handouts, trainings for the faculty of contacting outside experts to get consultation and trainings, preparing handouts trainings for the parents about parenting related topics, or inviting outside experts to do the trainings can be defined under these services. So here are the other objectives of guidance and counseling. To become independent and self-directed, to gain emotional maturity and stability, to recognize his importance to society, his contributions to its stability and progress, and his readiness and willingness to adjust himself to the standards of society, to be an organizer, initiator, and creator of situations that will rebound to the benefit not only of himself but society as well. And lastly, is to gain knowledge of himself, his own intellectual and physical capacities, his interests, his social and inborn traits, and the requirements and possibilities of certain actions. Children's behavior is influenced by their overall development, their environment, and the adults who care for them. So like us, we are the educators. It is important to remember that no one strategy will be effective in every situation or with every child. At different levels of development, strategies must vary. However, the more options for guidance and discipline that caregivers have to choose from, the more successful they will be in meeting the challenge of living and working with young children. So, before I will end this discussion, I have here a quote from Brian Herbert. The capacity to learn is a gift. The ability to learn is a skill. The willingness to learn is a choice. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day ahead.